Hey everyone, welcome to the Random Spirit Podcast. I am your host, Cynthia, and today I am doing another collab. I am collabing with an amazing astrologer. Her name is Marcy. I am forever grateful to have Marcy on my podcast. I look up to her in astrology and she breaks things down and goes above and beyond and explains things until you can understand it. And I thank you for that, Marcy. I really do. She goes in depth with astrology, which I absolutely love. I hope you all enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. Here is Mercurialmarcy. Welcome, Marcy, on my podcast.
Hello. How are you?
Girl, I'm good. How are you? How are you doing during this retrograde? These retrogrades.
Yes, seriously, I am surviving/thriving. I don't know. It's been chaos. We are both coming from two Virgo risings here as Mercury retrogrades in our first house. Mercury is technology issues up, up the wazoo right now. So it's been interesting. How are you doing?
Girl, it's been crazy. It's been crazy. Thank you so much for joining me. Girl, I look up to you, okay? You are an amazing astrologer. You're amazing at what you do.
Oh, thank
I
you.
love you. So, listen, it's like I just feel like you're so like it's probably your Virgo rising because like you don't rush. You take your time. You like to get in depth. Like I like that.
I am an over explainer, like for sure. When I am breaking down a chart for someone, I'm like, and because most people, they know a little about astrology. They come to me, they know their sun, moon, and their rising, and they might know their houses, but it's like I want them to understand how I'm coming up with my interpretation. So yeah, I sometimes find myself I'm like, Marcy, you don't really need to tell them everything, but I'm like, but otherwise how will they know where it's coming from? So
No, really, yes. So I want you to introduce yourself with your big three.
okay, let's see. So I am a Gemini sun, a Capricorn moon, and a Virgo rising. So, and what's interesting about that is that both my ascendant and my sun in midheaven are all ruled by Mercury. And my Mercury is in its home sign of Gemini. So hence why like my, TikTok and my usernames, my website, it's all Mercurialmarcy, which nobody can ever say. Nobody can ever pronounce Mercurialmarcy, but I'm like
Mercurialmarcy. I love that. That is so you. Wow. So that's like triple. No, that's because
yes.
Capricorn rules Saturn.
Yes, Saturn is my moon. Is my moon? Thank God, is ruled by Saturn, because otherwise I would be floating off into space which I sometimes do. But yeah, I actually have a good mix of air and earth, and thank God for that, because otherwise I would just literally be like squirreling out every day. So
I love that. I love that. All right, I want to go on and like just let us know just like a little bit about you, like your background, if you can. You don't have to go too deep, you know?
yeah. No, I'm like, you don't want me to start in like kindergarten or anything like that. No. I mean, so I guess so let's see, my background. I'm one of three kids. I have two older sisters who are amazing, my best friends. I'm currently live in Ohio, but I like was born in Wyoming and out west, and I lived in Colorado and California, but we moved to Ohio when I was in kindergarten, literally. So I've been in Ohio for most of my life. I'm 41 years old, but nobody needs to know that off the record. So yeah, I've been here my whole life. I went to college and majored in Spanish and communicate.
Okay.
Yeah, and communication, because I didn't know I had no idea what the heck I wanted to do when I grew up. Like, I just knew that I loved Spanish. I was always really good at it. I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go get a major in that and then throw on a communications slash marketing degree. And so, after college, I started working at a marketing firm. I've been there for over 18 years. I'm still working at the same job I got right out of college. And
Wow.
then flash forward to like 2019, I started to get way more into astrology and kind of have my own spirituals awakening slash dark night of the soul that really pushed me into it, as like, I'm going to dive into this rabbit hole and learn everything I possibly can.
Hmm.
And it was, I mean, that's probably a story that I could tell for, another time, but I'm like, it was a very dark time in my life, and
Okay.
astrology was exactly what I needed to find just like a glimmer of hope and meaning.
Well,
And
damn.
yeah,
I love that.
so it was just, I mean, so I'm still currently working, full time, at my 8 to 5 job, but it's like in a transition of the full, I'm doing astrology on the side, but it's becoming like 65 hours a week between the two. So
Oh.
I'm currently trying to transit out of that full time job if I can get the courage to make that leap of faith. And I'm like, I've done the calculations, I'm ready to do it, hopefully in the next 6 months to a year. And I just love astrology. It literally, like, when I say it saved my life, it saved my life. Like, I don't think I'd still be here if I hadn't figured, like, if I didn't figure out why I was in such a dark place back then through
Hmm.
looking at the astrology, and then like learning to make meaning of the rest of my life and my family's life, and everything. It just, because I don't know about you, but I did not grow up, I mean, we grew up Catholic, but not super strict by any means.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
it was very much like, yeah, we go on Sundays occasionally. And then once we got to 8th grade, we were allowed to decide if we wanted to. And it was kind of like, nope, I'm good. I'm done. Got my, got my confirmation. And so religion never played a big part in my life. I've always been into, I guess, yeah, definitely spirituality, more so in the, like, I remember back when I was 14, I would read like Sylvia Brown books. She had like all these books about reincarnation and past
Ooh.
lives and things like that. So I've always believed in past lives and spirit guides and talking to, your past loved ones, but it was never like a main thing in my life, and then astrology came along and I'm like, they're kind of tied together, but not necessarily. I mean, like, they are, but they aren't. So it's kind of, I've made my own little fusion of like, yes, I'm spiritual, but I'm mostly more like the intellectual, mathematical calculations of astrology. I definitely am, rely heavily on that, but I also like to bring in, the elements of past lives and spirit, soul contracts and all that. So
Okay. So
yeah.
I know there's a bunch of different, like, just fucking a lot of like tropical astrology, Vedic, Western. Which one do you do?
Yeah, so I am a tropical Western astrologer. I guess you could
Ooh.
say. So basically, I use the tropical zodiac versus the sidereal. Like, there's two different. The way I like to look at it, there's like, the zodiacs are different types of measurements, like kind of how in the States we use miles, and in the UK or everywhere else in the world they use kilometers. It's
Uh-huh.
kind of like the tropical zodiac is a system of measurement, and the sidereal zodiac is the other system of measurement. They both can come up with accurate information. It's just different ways of measuring. And
Mm-hmm.
then Western versus, I guess, Eastern slash Vedic is more about the cultural influence, and yeah, so I obviously did not grow up in the Vedic tradition of
Yeah.
India, and so
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, yeah, and that's a whole other side. I'm like, I will try to not go on too many tangents, but no promises. So,
Well, yeah, that's interesting because I love astrology. I love looking at stuff, and there's this person on YouTube I was looking at, like the Vedic, I think
mhm.
it's called, and I was like, it doesn't resonate.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
don't
it's a
know, you
super.
know?
I mean, it's very valid. I mean,
Yes.
I
Hmm.
will always say, like, every system of astrology, or every, like, different niche of astrology has
Yes.
its
Hmm.
merits, and I think everybody can choose, like, yes, I'm a tropical Western astrologer, but I use a combination of, like, the Hellenistic slash ancient traditions, ancient
Ooh.
techniques that, go back to the Babylonians, the Greeks, all that. But I also like to incorporate the modern psychological approach, which is more about, like, more about personality interpretation. So, I mean, astrology was originally basically just 4,000 some years ago, even, well,
Yes.
earlier than that probably, but it just started by a bunch of cavemen looking up at the sky and noticing, when the planets are doing this, X, Y, and Z happens with our crops, or with Earth, like, or not astrological, like weather events, or
Wow.
leaders of countries are assassinated, or, it started with what we call mundane observations, like, how
Yes.
does the general movement of the planets correspond to what's happening on Earth. And then it became, at a later date, I don't have the exact date on me, but,
Hmm.
a couple thousand years after that, it became like, okay, how can we also apply this to humans, as,
Hmm.
like, their personality and their life trajectory too. So I like to do, I like to use a little bit of everything, and I think that's my
Yes.
yeah, I think that's my Gemini, mutable air energy, likes to try a little bit of everything, and I don't like to stick in one box.
I
So,
love that. I love that about you. So, like, what drives you to continue with astrology?
honestly, I kind of feel like I fell into this a little bit. If you had told me, 5 years ago that you're going to be considering quitting your job to become a full-time astrologer, I probably would have laughed in your face, cuz I've always had such a very practical, boring day job, working at a marketing company, sitting at a computer all day, just secure in my, you know, the daily grind, basically.
Yes.
Miserable, but secure, at least,
Mhm.
and find, like, once I started to learn it, and read everybody's chart that I knew, and start to see the validity behind it I don't know, like, the only thing I can really compare it to is just, like, obsession and addiction, because it's so powerful to see that, I don't know what is up there, I don't know what kind of, creator, god,
Yeah.
universe, spirit is up there, but it's like, this is not random.
Mhm.
There's no way that I can look at the arrangement of the planets at the time you were born and know about your relationships, and your love language, and your family dramas, and your traumas, and your career path, and your ideals. It's like, there's no way that I should be able to know that, but every time it resonates and it hits, it's just
Mhm.
it's kind of like that dopamine hit of, like, oh my gosh, I have to keep go I just it lights me up inside.
You're
I
passionate about it, Marcy. Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
My even
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
even my family, they, like, since I've started doing this, they're like, we've never seen this side of you before. Because I always said, I'm like, I don't know what I wanted to be. Like, I just kind of went to school, got a degree, got a job, and, like, it kind of all kind of, fell in my lap, and I just let it be, because it was providing. So I was like, this was the first, and this I never knew. I thought I was just going to drift through life being, perfectly content with some level of unhappiness in my career. And is first yeah
Really?
this was the first time I had been passionate and had passion about anything in my life, like to this extent. So yeah, I mean, that's part of what keeps me doing it. But the other part is knowing that what I do now in some way, whether it's even if it's in the smallest way, might help another person make sense of their lives, make sense of some of the hardships they've been through, find ways to use their energy to change their lives for the better, to find self-empowerment. Like if there's anything I can do now to actually help another person through their journey, that's makes it worth it at the end of the day. Like 100%.
Is that how you would like describe like astrology? Like what is astrology to you?
Yeah, I think it's literally a tool for self-reflection and self-growth. It's like the short long and short of it is kind of like astrology is just the observation of the planets over thousands of years and the collection of data based on the planetary cycles and the planetary movements and how they correlated to certain events in our world and in our lives. And we apply those, that pattern recognition over
Yeah.
the thousands of years of data that we've collected, and we've now come up with this system of astrology that is again somehow able to tell us not only about like, oh, when is the stock market going to go down, when are we going to have wildfires, when are we going to have bad climate issues,
Mm-hmm.
we can see those things, but we can also look at a person's chart and be like, you struggle with attention to detail, or you struggle with self-destructive tendencies in love, and like be able to see where problems may arise or where they have naturally, not it's all not always just negative. It's also like,
Yeah.
oh, you have a natural talent for public speaking or creativity, and to be able to kind of almost use it as a tool for enlightenment. And I think a lot of it is most people, I think what they get out of my readings is a sense of feeling validated.
Yes.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that that's not always the most helpful or the most constructive outcome of a reading, because the outcome should be, they feel validated, they feel, but they also feel like they've gotten tools to work on things that they need to work on. And so
Yes.
some people can do that, some people choose to just take like, oh, okay, like I heard, you struggle with, obsessiveness in love, or
Mm-hmm.
or people pleasing, and they take that as like permission to just
Yes.
continue being that way. So it's like
Huh.
that's kind of one of the fine lines of like what I love about astrology, but things that I'm like, ooh, wait a minute, no, don't take that as like your chart shows this, so that that means you're destined to always be that way. It's like, how do we work with that energy in a more constructive way?
That's definitely therapy, girl.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess I just call it astrological counseling. Like every,
Mm-hmm.
that's what most astrologers, they call their bookings. They're like a one-on-one consultation or counseling with an astrological consultation. So
What do you call it
I guess,
for
I
for
mean,
for
yeah,
yourself?
I just kind of call it, you get to see me for how my bookings are an hour and a half long. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want. I mean, yes, consultation, a booking,
Yeah.
a therapy session, a bitch and moan session,
No,
whatever
for
you want
real.
it.
It's like a cry out session. Like Marcy just be
Yes.
sitting here hitting the trauma. This is what happened, and your
Yeah.
Saturn's here, and your Pluto's in the third house. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's like, and that's a whole other thing, is like, as an astrologer, our own biases and our own predispositions, our own attitudes, all of it play into how we read a chart. So I have to be careful myself to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that I'm not, bringing my bias into a reading of like, okay, like you've got a cat, like you and I, oh, I just noticed you've also got a Capricorn moon. So
Yes.
I've got a
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn. That's funny. We're both Virgo rising, Capricorn moons. There's obviously lots of differences in our charts,
Yes.
but so I have to be careful of like, not bringing some of my more pessimistic views of that
Mm-hmm.
into a reading. And obviously it's based on where your Saturn would be and what house it's in, and the aspects too all make a difference. But yeah, so anyways, I don't even know where I was going with that,
It's
but
okay, girl. We just going with the flow. That's what I like to do.
definitely.
What's the
That
most challenging thing about like what you do as an astrologer?
I mean, like, I think it's the overwhelming sense of responsibility I feel going into the readings that
Huh.
that causes me anxiety, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of like fear of failure. I mean, I'm a Capricorn moon. Capricorn's the sign of like fear, and
Yes, I
fear
feel
of
that.
failure and accomplishment is everything. So there's a little bit of that, but it's also like, because I know that something you tell someone in a reading or a consultation, they can take and run with it in.
Yes, you got to be careful with that.
Yes, so I'm very aware of like the responsibility that I hold going into every reading, even when it's, even when I'm just doing my mini off the cuff readings on TikTok, like
Yes.
those.
Hmm.
I'm always like, I always ask my spirit guides beforehand. I'm like, please, like, help me communicate messages in the most helpful way possible and do no harm, only leave them better than I found them. Just, there's such a weight, because again, I worked in marketing and like sales my entire
Yes.
life, and
Hmm.
literally, like, nobody's gonna nobody's gonna die if I don't get a shipment of like fryers out on time, or like,
Hmm.
we're just selling parts and equipment. Like, there's no real stake there, nothing at stake there. And I'm like, and this is more of a heavy weight for me. So I think that that's where I struggle sometimes, is I psych myself out, I second guess, and I'm like, Marcy, this. Like, I can go live on TikTok and ramble off readings off the top of my head, but when I have the private readings, I will obsess about them, for hours and hours and hours ahead of time, when I'm just like, Marcy, you got this. This stuff. So I think that's
Yes.
my biggest struggle, is just, because it's such a knowledge heavy subject. It's not like intuition. I mean, some people call themselves intuitive astrologers, but I definitely do not buy into that for myself, at least.
Really? I was
Yeah.
going to ask you if you feel like, there's any intuition like hits that you get when you're reading.
I've been told by people that, are my regulars, or that watch me on TikTok all the time, that are also like mediums, or
Yes.
intuitives themselves, that they're like, Marcy, you're definitely channeling when you're reading, or you're definitely getting into
Girl.
intuition. And I'm like, you could have fooled me, because I've never had any sort of like sixth sense or psychic abilities or gifts or anything like that. Like, sure, I guess we all have intuition, but like, I would never say that was something I even considered for myself. I've always been
Huh.
the very logical. I need proof and details and calculations. That's Mercury. It wants to have the facts and the data, and, to see the outcome of that. But so, um
Hmm.
but I was
Okay.
gonna say, like, what was I gonna? I don't know, something about, like, yeah. I just, as far as, it's such a like, it's a subject that just, you will never know everything about. Like, you can
Yes.
study
Hmm.
astrology for 70 years, and there will still be things that you could learn every day about it. So I'm like, I know what I know now, and I know I will only continue to get better through every reading and every, class and course that I take, because I'm never going to stop like learning about astrology, no matter like how old I am. But it's a very intensive subject, and I don't like,
Hmm.
I guess I kind of struggle when I see people being like, oh, I just read intuitively. I'm like, but it's not intuitive. It's a
Hmm.
place, it's degrees, it's math, it's
Yes.
angles, it's
Yes.
this planet makes a 90-degree angle to this planet, and it's like, so
I
yeah.
love that you are saying that. I love that. Wow, because there's a lot of like, the fact that you're sitting here and you're like, I don't know it all. You know
Mm-hmm.
how many times like I do see like astrologers, like I don't know if it's like the ego, like I'm the best of the best and I know and I'm just sitting here like, okay.
Ugh. Yeah, no, I literally just posted a TikTok about, well, because there's been some drama in the TikTok. Not I'm not involved because I try to
Yeah.
stay out of it, but like there's been some drama in the TikTok community over like literally what house system to use, which is a huge. I mean, that is literally the debate of
Oh,
that will never
Lordy.
end. No, there is no right answer. Like no one will ever prove that one way is the correct way to do it. And there are, like you said, there's astrologers on there that are just insistent, like my way is the only way. And I'm like, you can't know that.
Yeah.
You cannot know that unless you have read every single chart of every human being that's ever lived. So like, yeah, and I try to keep myself humble about where I am and where I can still grow. And
Mm-hmm.
I will never claim that my way is the only way or the best way of doing it.
Yeah.
I just know that it's the way that works for me and it gives me good results, and I feel at the end of the day that I have delivered the best possible reading that I can do. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a whole there's a lot of dividing off into based on what house system you use or what tradition you're using. If are you psychological, are you Hellenistic? It's
Huh.
like
That there's a lot, and it's so interesting. There really like is, it sounds like there's a lot to it. Like, so I guess like the house system, are you talking about like you know how like, I guess I know my chart, it's not like full, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so kind of. It's basically, there's the 12 pipe. Like our chart is a snapshot of the planets where they were at the exact moment that we were born, and the houses are set up by what sign was rising over the eastern horizon when you were born. That is the
Mm-hmm.
rising sign or the ascendant. So
Yes.
when you and I were born, the sign of Virgo was rising over the eastern horizon. So that automatically makes our first house Virgo. And
Mm-hmm.
then you divide the circle into 12 pie pieces, through all 12 zodiac signs, in order. So Virgo is your first house, second house is Libra, Scorpio is the third house, and so on and so
Okay.
forth. And there's some astrologers, going back thousands of years, the
Mm-hmm.
argument of like, should a house be the whole sign? Should just one house equal one sign, which is
Oh, okay,
yeah, which
okay.
is
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
sign houses, or should a house be determined based on the time it takes for the sun to rise one third of the way to the midheaven? Like
that is so calculated, Marcy.
well, there's so many. That's literally, they argue over the way that it's calculated, and it does make a difference.
Yes.
It does make a very
Wow.
big difference. Some people are like, oh, in my whole sign house, or in my whole sign chart, my sun is in the first house, which is all about embodiment and identity and you know personality and how we show up in the world. But in Placidus, it falls behind the ascendant. It falls in my 12th house, which is the house of self-undoing and spirituality and things that carry us away from
Huh.
life. And it's very nebulous, and it's the house of hidden enemies. And so like just the system of houses
Mm-hmm.
can make such a difference in the interpretation of a chart. And so people will always argue back and forth. It's literally like the astrology equivalent to the like like the abortion debate. Like
Oh,
no, it's
Lordy.
literally no one will ever
Yes.
agree to disagree. And I'm like, can't we just use both? I'm like, I use
Mm-hmm.
both. So anyways,
Whatever resonates.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I don't know, like, what are your thoughts? This is like random. I didn't put this in the question, so I apologize.
Oh, it's
It's like
okay.
random shit's popping up in my head, Marcy. About the what I want to know your opinions on like the 13th zodiac.
Oh yeah. So it's not what's interesting is that the zodiac is not equal to the constellations.
Okay.
Which is, a very popular misconception. Basically, we look at the what we call the celestial equator, which is just the equator of the Earth projected out into, out into space, for lack of a better word. And the constellations that fall on that celestial equator are what we call our zodiac. However, not every and this is part of the debate between sidereal versus
Yes.
tropical versus. Again, it's based on the geometric pattern and the way that a circle is 360 degrees, and they broke it into 12 houses because of the geometry of it. However, like the zodiac sign, or I'm sorry, the constellation, let's say, of, I believe it's Scorpio, is much smaller than the constellation of Gemini. But in a birth chart, in a birth chart, we give all of the signs 30 degrees of that pie piece. So I guess this is to say that a constellation is not equal to a zodiac sign.
Okay.
Which is very, yes, like that one took me a while to like kind of grasp onto too, because everybody's like, well, what about Ophiuchus, which is that 13th, the 13th sign? I'm like, there's actually like 15 or 16 constellations along our celestial equator. We could divide it into 13 or 14, but then like geometrically, again, we had to come up with a system that was observable and that worked geometrically. And there are astrologers that I believe they are called true sky astrologers that actually use the exact sizes of the constellation. So it's weird. This is probably way more detail than you needed to know, but like tropical astrologers, they use the zodiac, the 12, as we know it, the 12 zodiac signs. Same with sidereal, they use the same signs, but they're just, tropical is based on the seasons and where the sun that the first day of Aries season. Gosh, I'm going to do a horrible job explaining this. I always do. Like, I know the concept
You're
in my
fine,
head.
girl.
But yeah, so anyways, basically, like it's based on what the first day of Aries season every year, that the sun is, at 0 degrees of Aries when we hit the spring equinox. That's what tropical is. Sidereal has accounted for that they call the precession of the equinoxes. It's like a 6-degree wobble since time began, that it's like fallen back. So that's why your sidereal placements are, I believe it's 6 degrees off behind what your I'm sorry, not 6 degrees. It's I think it's 24 degrees. I'm using the opposite math. So like I am in tropical, I'm a Gemini sun, but in sidereal, I'm a Taurus sun. But there's other people who use true sky astrology, which, because the sidereal and tropical both account for 30 degrees for each zodiac sign. They each give each zodiac sign 30 degrees. But in true sky astrology, which most people, and it's very unresearched, I don't think there's much out there, but I see people saying that, they're like, no, we actually have to go based on the exact size, like relative size of the zodiac. So like if Scorpio is like tiny compared to Virgo, we're going to make the house of Virgo much bigger than the house that Scorpio rules. So again, there's a lot of argument over it, but I think it's one of those things where there is validity in tropical Western and there's validity in Vedic and in sidereal. And I think it's kind of like you've got to be a discerning customer and watch the content, watch the readings of whoever you choose to buy a reading from. You've got to watch them or look into them and get, word of mouth is another thing. Like, are their readings accurate? Do they seem to know what they're talking about? So I wish, believe me, my mercurial self wishes there was a neat, tidy answer to every question of like, this is the only way that it can ever be, and it's closed case, but that's
wouldn't that be nice?
yes, but that's just not it. So
oh my goodness. Okay. Is there anything about astrology that you feel people like really need to understand? I remember you telling me something about the sun signs.
I'm curious what I said about that. I'm like,
Okay, so the last time when we talked, I
Mhm.
forgot what I said, something about the sun signs, and then you were like, "Oh no, I don't do because
Oh
you
yeah.
said you were on live and I something about Scorpio and Mars
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah."
yeah. Well, and that's definitely one of the things that we, are up against on TikTok specifically, or any social media, is there are content creators who do astrology content, pop
Yes.
astrology content. They talk about, like, oh, if you have your Mars in Scorpio, that was one of the things. I think I had a girl come onto my live, and when I do my readings, I always have the chart up on the screen
Yes.
so people can see what I'm reading. And she was like, oh, that person has a Mars in Scorpio. He's a cheater. And I'm
Ooh.
like, and I'm like,
Okay.
girl, no, 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 no. And she like kept going with it. Like, normally I would just not, wouldn't, but I kind of like to be like, look, you cannot generalize. Every Mars in Scorpio is not the same, because you don't know what house is it in, what are the aspects to that planet. Those all make a difference in how that placement plays out. And so that, when they talk about sun sign astrology or pop astrology, it's basically taking the whole chart and breaking it into like pieces and trying to make like meaning out of something that, is really part of a whole spider web of meaning. Like, you can't just take one placement and break it down and have it be fully representative of that person. I mean, yes, you can, that's how everybody learns at first. You learn, like, what does this
Yes.
planet in this sign mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's step one, or step two of learning astrology. But like, once you've learned what the planets mean, what the houses mean, what the signs mean, you then have to learn, okay, well, what does this planet in this sign in this house mean? And then after that, you have to learn, what is this, planet in this house in this sign squaring this other planet in this house in this sign mean, and like, what house does it rule? And it's so complex that taking just oh, you have Mars in Scorpio.
You can't do that. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Like, and that's where, and I don't blame anybody for not knowing that if you haven't studied astrology, because
Yes.
that's what I wish people would know about astrology, is that it's so much deeper than just like, you are
The
these,
sun sign.
yeah,
Yeah.
the sun signs, or even just like, people will post a list of their planets. Like, here's my 10 planets. I've got, sun, moon, Mercury. Here's my Neptune, Jupiter, Saturn placements. It's like, just listing those, even that is not much information. I mean, yes, you can get some information from it, but like, it's such a complex, brain shattering, like, I feel like it's such a complex topic, which is why I love it, because it keeps me intrigued. It keeps my mind active. And like, I definitely have ADHD, so that's something that I've struggled with, is like keeping myself interested over the years with certain
Huh.
things. So
D-
like
does
that.
it stimulate your mind?
Oh, 100%, 100%. Like, I have to be so on mentally when I'm doing readings. So and I love it. I love it though. Like, I can go live and do, 10 mini birth chart readings and talk for 4 hours straight. And I'm like, oh, that flew by. But then I work at my other job for 8 hours, and I'm like, oh my God, is this ever going to end?
Oh
So
my goodness, Marcy. I feel like it's so like therapeutic when I watch your lives. You've been going live really late, girl,
I
okay?
know, I know. Well, I try. Usually it's on the weekends, and so that's why I'm
Yes,
like, oh,
I've noticed that. I'm like, dang, I missed it because I try to put my son to sleep, and then I sit here and I'm like, okay, like I like to scroll on TikTok, but
mhm.
lately I've just been falling asleep with him, okay?
Oh no, that's totally understandable. And that's the thing, like I'm trying to add more during like one night during the week at least, like earlier, 8:30, 9 o'clock East. I'm on the Eastern time zone. But like on weekends, I'll just, start at 10 or 11 o'clock and go till 3 in the morning or something. And it helps because then I get people from, the eastern side of the US, and I get the West Coast people later on. And
You get
it's,
everyone,
yeah,
girl.
I'm always getting people from one coast or the other being like, I didn't see you this whole last. I'm like, I was on. You just missed the time. I'm sorry, So, I believe me, like I wish I could do this every day, and like my plan is to do this every day.
I
And
can't wait until you do, girl. I'm gonna hype you up so much.
oh,
Oh.
thank you. You're amazing. I'm so like just I it's also the sense of community too that I feel like I've gotten from it is, the people who have come back, and even if they don't get a reading, they just watch and they comment and they come in and they, like I think it's like most people just come in and watch because they like to learn a little bit about astrology. So that's my favorite part too. Is I recognizing people coming back because I'm kind of one of those people who's never been really good with friends. Like I've never had a good friend group. I've always been kind of a loner. Like my sister's my best friend, and I'm just kind of you know I was always kind of the kid that was picked on and never had a so like have I'm like I just want to like make friends who are also going to nerd out with me over
I
spirituality
love that.
or astrology or anything like kind of spiritual or woo woo or anything like that, cuz that's not anybody I've got in my own actual life. So it's such a refreshing thing to even like meet people, even if it is over the internet. It doesn't matter. It's great
Yes.
to have people who understand or want to talk about those things.
It's so interesting because, like, I love hearing you talk about like astrology. I don't understand it, but I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, and I know I'm like sometimes I should probably I'm like, should I explain myself more or should I explain
No,
myself
girl. I
less?
feel like you have a really good like middle ground. I feel like you do good. You do good.
Well, good. I appreciate that. I'm like I welcome feedback too, because that's again that's part of growing and learning. So, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm kind of a little bit in this like phase of where is this going to go in the next 5 years, like
You are gonna pop off, okay? I'm just letting you know, girl.
right now it's going really well. I'm just like there's that fear of like, is this going to be sustainable? Because we all say like all of us are like, oh, we would be so lucky to have a job that you actually love, but like
Yes.
how many people actually get to say that? I'm like
Yes.
up until now I haven't. I
Mm-hmm.
just do my job because I have to do it and it's safe, and that's my Taurus place. Like that's my Taurus Venus and my Chiron in Taurus. So Taurus is a fixed earth sign. It's all about material
Ah,
success.
your
And
Chiron's in Taurus. Okay.
yeah, actually what I was gonna say, what's
Mine's in Leo.
I'm like, I know you're quite a bit younger than me, so I know oh yeah, yours is right in the 12th house, Chiron and Leo. Interesting. I'll have to look at that a little more. But like, yeah, so I definitely have a fear or like a wounding or an insecurity, which is Chiron, around money or finances or value, things of value, and not wanting to let go of things that are keeping me financially stable. So like even though I've never
Damn.
yeah, like
Mm.
even though I've never really had to worry a lot about money, like that's what's keeping me from just taking the leap of faith and going rogue and doing my own thing full time, because it's like, well, what if I don't have the benefits? What if I don't have the money? What if I don't make enough? What if I and I'm like, that's such a lack mentality that I constantly struggle with. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just money. Like Taurus is all it's anything of it's about value, things of value. So
Mm-hmm.
like your own self value too. Like, how do you value yourself? And like with a wound in a Chiron in Taurus, my own sense of self-worth is something that's always been a huge issue to me. So it's like charging what I'm worth is something that I deal with, and like taking, and again, in relationships, asking for what I'm worth in a relationship. Those are all Chiron type things. It's wounding around values, around money, around stability, financial and physical and material stability. And so yeah, that's always an interesting one. Like I find, like, with if I were to do like one topic readings ever, it would be probably like, what's your Chiron? Let's look at that, because that can be like, I mean, although that's kind of negative to talk just about what's
No,
your
it's so crazy you're saying that, because I love, like, I know everyone's Chiron in my household and like my family members, but it's like, it's just so interesting. I'm not like,
Mhm.
I'm not like you, how like you can see, conjunctions and then the blue lines and the red. Like, no, like I just want to
Yeah.
look at the house and the Chiron and the sign, and then I do my little research, and I'm just like, wow. Like my husband had his Chiron is in Cancer.
Oh, so he
His
has kind of that, like, the
that
mother
family.
wound, the
Mm-hmm.
mother
Oh
slash family wound, maybe
yes.
even abandonment
Oh
issues,
girl.
or yeah. I mean, again, that's a very generalized.
Well, yeah, but it's
Yeah.
it's just so like, oh my gosh, don't even, because now I'm over here like just thinking like, you know what, I need to have you on again. We could talk about Chiron. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, seriously. Like, give me your whole family's charts. We'll just
No,
break them
for real,
down. Like,
right?
no.
No, so okay. Do you mind letting us know what your siblings and your parents, like, their, I guess, their sun signs?
Yeah, no. So interestingly enough, so again, I'm a Gemini sun, and both of my parents are also Gemini suns. Um,
Okay, we love the air.
which is a whole nightmare of like arguing, bickering, talk. No, nobody knows when to shut their mouths, like, yeah. So they are both Geminis, and interestingly enough, they both have Mars in Gemini too, which means how they fight is with their words. Mars is the planet of
Ooh, okay.
aggression. So Mars is the planet of aggression and how we fight, and what we fight over. And with them, it was with two Gemini Marses, Gemini suns, and my dad's a Gemini rising. It was
Ooh,
just bicker nonstop, just little jabs, like words as weapons, is Mars and Gemini.
that's crazy. Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah, so that was what I dealt with growing up, was hiding in my room so that I didn't have to listen to my parents bicker constantly or yell at me or my sister or whoever. And then I have two older sisters. The middle one, she's like my Irish twin. She's 16 months older than
Oh
me.
my goodness.
She is an Aquarius, so she's another air sign.
The air. Oh my goodness. The
Yes, very.
air.
But she's like, again, she's also very much earth and air too. Like, we both have
Okay.
a lot of earth placements and a lot of air placements, but not, yeah. So she's very grounded, very practical, but she's also that humanitarian of Aquarius. It's like that. She's literally like, she's got two kids. She's the Girl Scout leader, the PTO mom,
Oh, we
like
love that.
the she's very practical. She's an engineer, with the side job of being a Girl Scout leader, PTO mom. Like, she's such an Aquarius, but like she's got also, like, she's a Capricorn rising, Taurus moon. She's all about like,
Ooh.
how do we make things work for the collective, like bigger picture thinking, solution oriented,
Wow.
a little robotic, and she'll admit to it. She knows, but she's the rock in the family. She's like the rock. She's the like the one
Oh
that,
my
yeah, holds it
goodness.
down. So, because that's her Taurus moon, which is, the moon does really well in Taurus if you consider being able to slowly compartmentalize and then process your emotions.
My
Good.
girls, my 8-year-old twins, they have a
Mm.
Taurus moon.
Oh, that's
I know,
awesome.
that's so crazy. Your
Yeah.
sister sounds like a boss, okay?
She is. I seriously am in awe of her. Like, nothing. She's kind of the definition of unflappable. nothing really throws her off too much, which, well, except for like recent events that we've been dealing with, but we won't get into
Mhm.
that. But I'm like, she is just so, she just keeps going. It's that fixed energy too. Like Taurus is fixed energy, it's
Mhm.
fixed earth. Um, Aquarius is fixed air, so like fixed ideas, like steady, and like we're going to stick to this. So like fixed people with fixed energy are just so solid and dependable, and they are
I love that.
determined. And I am like, I've got just like, I have very little. I only have a Taurus Venus. That's my only fixed placement. I'm like mutable over here in cart. I'm like, I'll start stuff and I'll finish stuff, but like if you want me to spend 5 hours working on something, it's not gonna happen. So
Marcy's like, I'm out.
yeah, so like she's just dependable in every way and practical, and does everything she's supposed
Wow.
to. So I love her. But and then my other sister, who's like 5 years older than me, she's also a Capricorn. So both my sisters are 1 degree Capricorn risings. I don't know how that happened, but they were both born with the exact degree, the same rising
That's
degree
crazy.
as each
What? Oh
other.
my God. What's her sun sign?
But she is a Capricorn sun, Capricorn
Ooh.
rising, and a Cancer moon. But she's got like,
Okay.
she's got a Capricorn Mercury, Capricorn Mars, Capricorn Sun, and a Capricorn rising. So as you can
We
imagine,
love that.
she is a bit more stoic than the rest of us, and she's literally like, she got like all these air, 4 other air signs in the family, and then there's her just like rolling her eyes in Capricorn over there. So with like
We love the sass.
yeah, so she's also just super dependable, super hard work. Like, yeah, both of my sisters kind of make me feel a little bit of like I'm not living up to standards. That's my Capricorn moon.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, somehow I ended up like, I'm looking at my parents with a little side eye. I'm like, how did you end up with 3 children, all of them having heavy Capricorn placements? Because if Capricorn is the sign of like discipline and hard work, but
It's that
also
masculine energy. Yeah.
it's actually feminine. Like
Is it?
Capricorn is actually a feminine sign. It's ruled by Saturn, which
Uh-huh.
Saturn has a masculine and a feminine
Mm-hmm.
sign, but it's Capricorn is the feminine Saturn
Ooh.
ruled sign. But it's just because it's receptive, but it's hard to, it does seem masculine because of the
Mm-hmm.
way that society looks at
Yes. Mm-hmm.
work and accomplishments, and climbing up that ladder and overcoming obstacles and
Yes.
discipline and all those things. But it's also about like having to grow up way too soon, like having too much responsibility placed
Ouch.
on you, and like not necessarily having warm and fuzzy feelings for your parents, but having parents that like provide for you, but like they're not really warm or fuzzy. They're kind of just, they're providers more than they.
Really?
Yes. So, because it's like like it's interesting. It's weird. Like they call it like the father energy, or like, but.
Yes. I've heard so many people call like Daddy
Mhm.
Saturn, like Capricorn,
Yes,
you know?
it is. But yeah. So it's interesting. I'm like, okay, there's something to be said there about my parents, that
Is is
all
that
three of
like
their daughters have that.
Capricorn the sign in like just generalized like what you're explaining?
Like, so if you have personal planets, like if you have your sun, your moon, your Mercury, Venus, and Mars not so much, because Mars is actually exalted in Capricorn, but like some,
Mars.
a Venus in Capricorn, because
What does
Venus.
exalted mean?
So exalted means it is in a place where it does very well, and it
Okay,
is
okay.
highly, it's highly functioning, and has all the resources it needs to do well. So Mars, if you think of Mars, it's the planet of action. It's a
Yes.
planet of like initiating and taking action towards your desires, but it's in a sign ruled by Saturn, which is all about discipline and longevity and hard work. So when you put those two together, you get someone who is like the best, like that will just, not only will start new things and work really hard, but they will see it all the way through, and they will be very responsible and mature in their actions, whereas sometimes Mars can be a little like impulsive or immature, or like erratic, you bring in that Saturnian energy of Capricorn, and it's like, okay, I'm going to be feisty, but I'm going to be responsible and feisty. So it's like the best of both worlds, kind of. So that's why Mars is exalted in Capricorn. But so the more you know.
No, for real, for real. I have two more questions because I know you have
Mhm.
something to do after this.
That's okay.
Okay, my brain, I literally just had a brain fart. Um, okay, so question number one is about Saturn.
Hmm.
And I just want to know your thoughts and just, whatever you have to say because I guess you can say like the pop astrology culture, they sit here. I feel like, they kind of like make everyone has a Saturn return. Is it 27 years? I think.
It's around age 28 to 29, somewhere in there. It varies depending on where it is, but yeah, you can start to feel at 27, but it's usually the exact return is sometime in your at around 28 or 29, sometimes
That's
30.
crazy. Okay, so like um so with the Saturn placement, a lot of people say I've heard like mixed, and
Mm-hmm.
like people say that when you go through your Saturn return and something about karma and lessons, and if you don't like learn it, it drags you.
Yeah, I mean, it's so Saturn is basically, yes, it's the disciplinarian of the zodiac. It's that the authoritarian energy of, here, we're gonna give you lessons to learn in this life. Some people call that karma. Karma is really just the consequences of your actions, for good or for bad. So what
Yes.
Saturn is, it's the doler out of karma. It's like, did you do the work? Did you put in the effort? Did you stay disciplined? Were you practical? Okay, great. I'm going to reward you by giving you this great paying job, this happy marriage,
Hmm.
this great life, all these things, all these accomplishments that you are wanting. Or if you're like, well, I kind of skipped a few steps and slept through class and didn't really learn the lesson and kept going back to the same, toxic relationship, or
Hmm.
or I just kind of hurt other people along the way to get to where I am. Well, Saturn, being the planet of consequences, will, yeah, it'll kick you in the butt and say, nope, we're gonna make you go back and face that same lesson again in a different form. So really, your Saturn return is just about, Saturn's about boundaries and lessons and hard work and discipline and those types of things. So when you have a planet returns, it just means that, you know, every planet has a different amount of time it takes to come all the way
Yes.
around the zodiac. So Saturn, it takes roughly 28 to 30 years to go all the way around the zodiac back to the point where it was when you were born. And that is the Saturn return. So that is when the themes of, those lessons come back up. It's the first time in your life where, in astrology, you're considered to be kind of an adult because you've been through things, you've
That's
learned
crazy.
lessons, you've faced hurdles, you've faced roadblocks, you've faced fears. And the question around your Saturn return is, how did you handle those roadblocks? How did you handle those hurdles? Did you let them kick you down, and did you stay down, or did you get up and keep working and keep your, mature? It's all like, that's the other thing
Yeah.
Saturn is. Saturn's maturity and mastery and growth. So Saturn has a good side too. Like, it can represent where in your chart you can become a master of something, like through hard work. Yes, like, it's always going to require hard work. Wherever Saturn is, you're always going to require a little bit of hard work. But it's also where you have potential to become like a master at something and to mature into something and be respected for something. So, like, on one hand, it's about where you feel like you have a sense of obligation. Like, I feel like early on in life, Saturn represents where you just feel obligated, like there's responsibilities to deal with, you feel like burdened, you feel like there's just the sense of
Hmm.
duty. So, like, for you, where your Saturn
The
is in,
sixth
yeah,
house.
your Saturn's in the sixth house. So for you, it's like, you've always felt like there is a sense of obligation to be of service to other people, where you feel like you have to, always be cooking or cleaning or playing, almost like it's literally the sixth house is the house of servitude. It's of, healing. Yes, it can be, healing in a sense of like nurses and doctors that are very much associated with the sixth house, but also like labor. The sixth house is labor. So having Saturn there is actually, it's kind of not the worst placement, because that house is already not that fun. The sixth house is just the month. It's literally like the house of like, I've got
Marcy.
no, it's interesting though, because it's the house where you're like, okay, I've got to take care of my health, because I like the sixth house is your illness and your illnesses and injuries that
Yes,
result from your whether dependent on your daily routine. So it's the house of routine, it's the house of health, injuries, and illnesses. It's the house of servitude and being of service to others. So when you put Saturn there, it makes you somebody who feels like obligated to always be taking care of other people in practical ways. Like, yeah, let me help you with, it could be something as simple as like you may have grown up having to like do your own laundry from an early age, or pack your own lunches for yourself, and like the kind of the day-to-day stuff that some parents take care of for their kids,
that's
because so
crazy.
was that something you experienced?
No, it's so funny because it's so funny because growing up, look, okay, I love
Mm-hmm.
my mama, and I'm so sorry for putting my mama through all the shit I did, but I was a like rebel. Like I didn't have any responsibility. I hit like my
Mm-hmm.
teen, and she'd be telling me stuff. I was just so nasty, and I'd
Mm-hmm.
say no. But it's funny because you literally like nailed it. During my Saturn return, I had gallstones. I had Sebastian.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I went through like I went through my awakening, and I had to wake up because I was doing for a lot of people, and they
Mm-hmm.
weren't doing anything back. Um, my trigger response came up, and I was a flighter, and I packed my kids and I moved back home, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny because your Saturn is in Aquarius, the sign of the
yes,
rebel. So like your lesson is like you actually kind of buck tradition when it comes to the sixth house of like daily routine, like taking care of, and the daily routine includes things like working out, eating well, getting enough sleep, all of those, like going and getting a regular checkup from the, like that's the sixth house. It's boring, mundane stuff that we have to do. So with you, it's like, growing up, yeah, you're like, no, I don't want to do any of this. I'm going to, kind of do my own thing. It's free. You have more of like a freedom loving energy there with Aquarius.
that's so
But when your
crazy.
Saturn return came around, because you hadn't necessarily like buckled down and really tackled those
It
things,
dragged me,
it
Marcy.
kicked your butt. It was like, okay, you didn't really learn the lesson, so we're gonna throw. Here's a health issue. Here's
A
something,
pregnancy.
a
you're
pregnancy, and now
you're
you've
gonna
got a
have your
child to.
son.
Now, not only do you have to take care of your own well-being, you have to take care of a child's well-being. So, like, it restricted your independence, because that's what Aquarius is about, is independence. And when you put Saturn in Aquarius, sometimes it can literally be a boundary or a restriction on your sense of independence and freedom. So,
That's just so crazy. Like, and now I find it funny because Scarlett and Alea, my 8-year-olds, it's so funny. I'm trying to like catch them at a young age, like, okay, let's do stuff. And then, no, I don't want to do it. Oh my God, what is this? I don't want to touch it. And like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, you're acting like how I did when I was 16.
yes. You're like, is this my karma coming back
No, for
around?
real. And I'm sitting here and I talk to her, I'm like, Ma, I'm so sorry. She goes, yeah, mija, it's okay.
No, it's actually funny now that I'm like, and if you don't, I like looking at your chart again, like your fifth house of children is ruled, but it's in the sign of Capricorn. Your moon is there, you've got Neptune and
Yep.
Uranus, which are generational, but it's ruled by Saturn. So you have a Saturn ruled fifth house, which tells me that well, I know you have twins, so your
Mm-hmm.
firstborns, that would be your fifth house. Your firstborn children is going to be almost like a lesson or a karmic thing for you of like cycle breaking. So
Oh
it's
yeah,
going,
100%.
yeah. Yeah. So when you say like it's kind of karma coming back around for what you did, what you put your mom through, like I don't like to think of it in like that spiteful of a way,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
is a
yeah.
little it's a little bit of a lesson of like, here's a lesson you need to learn, and now you're going to learn it through your kids as well.
Yeah, and I'm just like, well, I'm just trying to, breathe. I'm just like, okay, I'm not trying to, because
Mhm.
I was raised by, my parents, I like to call them like boomers,
Mhm.
and I try not like to let my inner boomer come out.
Yes. Yes.
Did Saturn drag you?
You mean you actually know where your children are at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday?
Girl, when I listen, okay? When we had the girls, like, me and Trey had like a really serious talk because my parents were very strict. I would get my phone taken away, just like, a lot of trauma there. So like now with
Mhm.
Scarlett and Alea, I watch true crime, I'm into that stuff, and I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I
Yeah.
need to get to know this person. I want to hang out with you for like a year before my kids go to your house?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, it just reminded me of that commercial from the 80s when they're like, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Like they literally had to remind boomers that they had children to care about. So like Pluto
Damn.
Pluto and Leo generation, that's Pluto, the sign of like what we're obsessed with, and Leo being the self and my own like my own passion. Like it's literally like boomers are just focused on themselves. That was their main concentration and their
Isn't it
happiness and their
crazy?
fulfillment. So that's a whole other part of astrology, the generational markers too. So yeah, but what were you saying about Saturn? Sorry.
Did it drag you? You don't have to
Um
really get into it.
yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, like well, our moons are very very close in degree. So you probably had so my moon is at 22 degrees of Capricorn. And back in 2020, actually, like earlier than that, like 2018 was when Pluto came within like a 3 degree orb of my moon. So it was like
Oof.
moving, Pluto's moves the slowest of all the planets. It takes
Yes.
sometimes 15 to 20 years, sometimes longer to move through a sign. So Pluto first starts approaching my moon in Capricorn, and then come 2020, we had the lineup of Pluto and Saturn, the Pluto Saturn conjunction, which only happens, I believe, every 20 years. I think, yeah, it's like once every 20 some years. And like the last time it happened was around 9/11.
Ooh, girl. Mm.
The time before that was the AIDS pandemic. So like astrologers had been knowing for years and years and years that 2020 something major was coming. There was a Saturn Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, the sign of restrictions, the sign of hardship, the sign of death, the sign of like, yeah, like, scary things and hard things. And then Jupiter also came along. There was a Saturn Jupiter Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. It was like a very very
Uh-uh.
rare, you have to go back hundreds of years to see when that last happened. So astrologers were like, what is this going to be in 2020? Like, what is happening in
Yeah.
2020? And like, is it going to be a war? Is it going to be like a massive, like, who knows? They just knew it was going to be death and financial restriction
Shit.
and possible, like, some people, there were some astrologers that guessed it right, that it was going to be a pandemic. A lot of people thought it was going to be like a major uh you know ecological disaster, or a major like depression, financial fallout or something.
Hmm.
But like, which that all happened, that the financial burdens of COVID on top of the lives lost. But yeah, so that was all happening right on my moon, like when
Ooh.
Pluto and Saturn made a conjunction. It was almost to the exact degree of my moon. So I had the planet of Saturn, which is restrictions, doubts, fears, responsibility, heaviness, melancholy. And then Pluto, which is about forced evolution and change, and making sure that you like let go of things that are no longer serving you, or it's going to make you let go of them. It's literally forced evolution. Like, you're either going to change this, or we're gonna drag you through the mud. Like,
Yeah.
either let go or get dragged. That's Pluto. So I had those two planets conjunct on my moon, which is already square Saturn and Pluto in my natal chart. So when I say I almost didn't survive like 2018 through 2021 because it was like
Wow.
3 years. It was literally 3 years of Saturn and then Pluto all just drag it, like wiping their butts across my moon, basically. Like, I don't know.
Jeez.
That's the best way I can describe it, is I feel like they were just like dragging it because they do retrogrades too. So I'm like,
Yes.
just when I would start to feel better, it would be like, getting knocked on my butt again. And I'm like, okay. So it basically, that's when I found astrology, or that's when I got into like the
Oh my
depths of
goodness.
astrology.
Yes.
Yeah, like I was in a horrible state of mind. Like my mental health had never been worse. I've always struggled with mental health, like more of the anxiety and the OCD, but
Yes.
like the depression that I had during that time was through the roof. And I had like nothing had changed. Like for me, it wasn't even the pandemic, because like I worked from home already for 12 years, so my daily routine did not change. I still got to see my family for the most part. Like, not my life was not really as disrupted by the pandemic as most people's, thank God. And I'm very grateful for
Yes.
that.
Hmm.
But for some reason, just my mental health was in the garbage. And like, yeah, I wasn't really keen on being here for like 3 years. And then I started to dig into astrology, and I was like, oh, that's why I feel like, again, and it's not
Hmm.
causal, but it was like, this is why I feel so miserable. Like
Yeah.
something in my life needs to change. I need to find, meaning, and I need to figure out, like, I have to let go of my pessimism, because Saturn, and like, so you have, I both have this, like our fifth house, which is supposed to be about joy and fun and hobbies and romance and creativity, and
Girl, I
all
don't know how
these
to have fun, okay?
fun thing. Yeah, we have Saturn, the planet of discipline and
Mm-hmm.
ho hum and melancholy and sadness, ruling our fifth house of joy.
Shit.
So, and both of our moons are there too. So our emotions are so heavy sometimes. They feel like our emotional security is tied to our ability to be like productive and achieve certain standards and feel like we're making a difference. And if we don't feel like we're living up to certain standards, either societal or self-imposed
Yeah.
standards, like our mental and emotional health can just be in the toilet. Like, I don't know about
Mm-hmm.
you, but like for me, that's
Yes.
definitely been the
Mm-hmm.
case.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of fear of failure, a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of not feeling like you're doing enough or good enough, or whatever it is. So yeah, that was a terrible time. But like, again, circling back to, astrology saved my life, because it gave me, it didn't, like, it wasn't like the planets were causing me to feel
Yeah.
miserable, but it gave me hope that there was an end point to this, and that there was a reason that all of this was happening, and that I needed to learn certain lessons about, like, stop being like, I was a pessimist my whole life. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of miserable. I've been depressed since, I mean, I do have like clinical depression and everything,
Yes.
but like, again, I just let it weigh me down and make me miserable, and just ho hum party pooper Marcy, and I'm like, just get over it, Marcy. Like, find joy in your life, find something of purpose. And like, once I started helping other people, and just, being able to relate to other people as a Gemini, and being able to help people as a Virgo rising, like, it told me what I needed to do to make my life have a greater sense of meaning and passion. I looked at my chart and I was like, okay, this is what I need to feel accomplished, to feel like I'm striving for my dreams. And like, it made sense. It all added up to, okay, you're going to be an astrologer. You're going to have consultations with people where you're talking about very deep issues and mental health and trauma, but you're going to help make them understand why and how they can get through it in the best possible way. So it was a game changer for me. So.
That's crazy because when during my Saturn return, I feel like it dragged me into like doing shadow work, and like
Mhm.
spirituality, saved me. So
Mhm.
wow. Aw, that's
No,
so
that's very, very much.
sweet.
Well, you would have had the same thing as I did. You didn't just have a Saturn return, or, well, I'm sorry, you didn't have just Saturn on your moon. You had Saturn and Pluto on your moon too. You still
Was
actually
that
have.
in 2018?
it's for you, it probably started like end of 2018 into 2019, and it's still kind of within range. Like
You were
Pluto is
so accurate, because I'm not going to trauma dump, but when I tell you Trey's Saturn return, Marcy, his
mm-hmm.
Saturn is in Capricorn in the 4th house.
Mm-hmm.
He went through some shit and that affected me, and I was at my
Yeah.
lowest point like ever in my life. It was so bad. My parents still don't know about what happened, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
then after that, we got out of it, and then I got pregnant with Sebastian in 2019, and then gosh.
It so literally since 2019 you have had either Saturn and Pluto on your moon, but now it's just Pluto on your moon, which is
Well,
still bad enough.
Pluto can go, okay? Because
Pluto's going to. It's because it's doing this like little dance in and out of Aquarius until the end of 20. Like we already had like a little bit of a sneak peek of Pluto moving into Aquarius and from March to June of this year, and now it's back right now. Like right now, as we're speaking, it's at 27 degrees of Capricorn, which your moon is at 25. So it's very much on. Like I use at least a 3-degree orb. So your moon is still getting hit by Pluto. You're still having emotional transformation, familial transformations. It's also affecting your friends, networks, hopes, and dreams.
Literally calling me out.
Well, because that's your 11th house, which is ruled by your moon. Your moon rules your 11th house of friends, hopes, and dreams, and networks. So, like, that's also being forced to change and evolve and let go and surrender. So yeah, you're still going through it, but by the end of 2024, I know that sounds a long way off.
Miss Ma'am, you need to say 2023, okay?
I wish I could. You're going to have a little bit of a reprieve because again, it's doing like this go into Aquarius, then retrograde back, then go into Aquarius. So it's getting further and further every time it retrogrades back. But like, I think once you may start to feel again, like even over like the spring, you'll probably start to feel better because it'll be in Aquarius.
That's again. Too long.
But I know, I know that's the thing. It's literally you've got your generation, your millennial generation with the Pluto, and again we're getting deeper into the weeds with the Uranus Neptune conjunction, which is like the millennial conjunction, basically. You all have those two outer planets, Neptune, which is about spirituality or disillusionment or faith or, crisis of faith. And then Uranus, which is the planet of rebellion, independence, freedom, innovation. Those two planets are conjunct, like right next to each other for a long time I can't give you the exact, I want to say like 1988 until like 1984, maybe. I'm not sure the exact, like it's maybe 85 or 86. I'm trying to no, it's longer than that. Sorry. I'm doing a terrible job of remembering.
You're fine, girl.
But yeah, so anyways, you guys have all been having like first Saturn, then Pluto. I mean, Jupiter is faster moving and that's a benefic, but like Saturn and Pluto have been kind of destroying the millennials, and you can
thank you, Saturn and Pluto.
But like you can see it if you like, I don't know if you're on the side of TikTok that I am, but like you see these people that are just like, what is this even about? Like we can't afford to even rent a one-bedroom apartment. Like their sense of stability, their sense of security, financial security, their sense of like accomplishment in their careers, their money situations, their family situations, which is all Capricorn. It's like it's just trash for the majority. Not everybody, obviously, but for a lot of millennials, they've lived through 2 recessions, 9/11, I mean COVID, like every major event in their life has been marked by tragedies. So you guys, and that's honestly that's kind of, and again, I don't like to, I know I'm getting a little bit dark here, so I apologize, but
do it, go in.
The good news is that like things will be getting easier for Capricorn placements and Aquarius placements.
Good.
You guys, you guys are getting your turn next. But yeah, so we won't mention that you have a 1-degree Leo Venus that will be opposed by Pluto first.
Let's just, no. What does that mean, Marcy?
just, there's going to be some power dynamics in relationships that may need to be addressed,
Oh
whether
no,
that's,
I feel like that's already playing out in all my
yes, well,
relationships.
because it's already made a conjunction back in like from March to June. It was already within that 1 degree opposition. And so something may have started from March to June
Girl,
around.
I'm gonna have to text you what happened,
Yeah.
but
You're like, I can't share with the listeners, but no.
there's a lot of friendships, a lot of
Hmm.
true colors. I've been working on my mother wound, and I need to meet more people like you, Marcy, because
Hmm.
you're not, you don't give the vibe of like I'm in competition and you're my competition, you
No.
just you're nothing like that. And there's a lot of women that I've been attracting,
Uh-huh.
that are like that, and literally, yeah. So anyways,
And what planet is opposing Pluto? Venus, the planet that represents young women or females in general. Like, yeah, so when you have Pluto opposing your Venus, you're going to have, I mean, Venus is also about relationships and finances in general too, but it's also about women. So your
damn.
relationship dynamic with women and power dynamics, like who's on top, who's in control, who's better, who's worse, like that is literally, yeah, unfortunately that's part of what this is about. And the other part is possibly financial too, because it rules your second house of income. So
I'm gonna have to book a reading with you, girl.
oh yeah, I at this point I owe you one. I can't believe
No,
I
girl,
was,
absolutely not.
so,
But
but I would love to. Like let's schedule it so we can get it on the books, because
no,
me,
for
I am
real,
like,
yes.
I need it on the books so I can make a time in my day and can carve that out. So,
Very last question.
mhm.
When are you gonna start teaching astrology?
uh,
You are so like, I'm telling you, it's that
yeah.
Virgo. It is that this
Yeah.
is how it happened, this is why it's happening, and then ABCD all the way to
Hmm.
Z, and then I just, you need to teach astrology at some point, Marcy.
I know it's in my chart. I know I see it, but I'm also at this like, I want to first get out of my other
Yes.
job
Mm-hmm.
before then, and then like really build up like a sense of, like steam, and like get going and make sure that everything is going smoothly and I don't have to like go back to working full time again or something. And then I'm like, okay, then I will branch into teaching, because yeah, and I think I want to do teaching more like mentoring one on one than,
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, I could put a class out, but here's the thing. Every TikTok astrologer, and even the good ones, like there are people I know who are amazing astrologers.
Yes.
They all have their courses. They all offer like astrology 101 courses. And that's how I started. I took an online course, a
Yes.
101 course. But like what you miss out of that is the ability, like, yeah, if you take a live class, like you can ask questions sometimes like after the course or whatever, and you can email them questions, but like you don't get that one-on-one time of like, hey, okay, I understand like the concept of squares is like that there's an inner tension, like a 90-degree angle, and like it's between this planet and this planet, but like help me work through this, like help me walk through it and figure out what this actually means in my chart, versus more like a, okay, I get it, like Mars square Venus, like values versus like the masculine versus the feminine, or
Yes.
like it's the ability to talk to somebody. And that's what I've been missing, like that's what I've missed out on. Like I felt like, and that's why most people are like, oh, you should get a mentor, you should always have a mentor. And I'm like, I want to mentor people, but I don't want them to call me like, oh, this is the mentor, this is my mentor that I learned. Like I'll offer, maybe like 2 hours, like,
Yes.
like, not, it doesn't have to be structured. It doesn't have to be like,
Yes.
yes, you commit to seeing me every week. No, like if you want to buy 2 hours of like time with me to go
Mm-hmm.
over your questions, and you can buy as many or as few as you want, so that like, it's because that's my thing. I've always felt like, well, yeah, I would love to just sit down with this guy, like a mentor, somebody who's like a senior level astrologer who's been doing it for 30 years, and pick their brains. But none of them really offer that. They offer like, here, you have to pay $2,000 for my entire
I don't like
course.
that.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, 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 no. You like my time is my time. Like you buy a reading for 90 minutes and I charge this much. If you
Yes.
buy a 90 minutes of my time, it should be about the same amount. Why are
Mm-hmm.
people charging more for the same amount of time if there's no like extra prep work in the front end at least? So I guess yes, I definitely want to teach because it's something I'm hugely passionate about, but I also want to make sure that I am as knowledgeable and as you know experienced as I can be before like just being like, hey, I'm teaching astrology, even though I'm still like I've only been doing this for 2, 3, 4 years, whatever, because I see people who are offering courses after knowing astrology for 2 years. And I'm like, no, no,
Yes.
no, no, no. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care how fast of a learner you are, which I credit myself. I'm like, I'm a very fast learner. Like, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
sponge, but like, I still like, I want to learn more. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where I am. But
I feel like your readings on TikTok and even like your private readings, you kind of give the vibe of like you're a very intimate one-on-one type of person, right?
yes, yeah, I will. I love having conversation. I don't want it to just be me like, this is what happened and this is what happened and here's when this like I want it
Mm-hmm.
to be like a back and forth. And that's why because people will ask me, they're like, do you do like pre-recorded readings? I'm like, no, because honestly, like a consultation is requires feedback. Like I need to know, obviously, like when I'm reading your chart, like I was just doing with you, I'm like, yeah, you've got like Pluto opposite your Venus coming up and it's already started. Like for me, I'm like, okay, that can manifest in like, yes, you're having issues with females or friends,
Mm-hmm.
you're having issues in your marriage, or you're
Mm-hmm.
having like issues with money because it rules your second
All of
house
them.
of
All of
finances.
them.
And I want to know, I'm like, is it one of those three? Is it all of those three or none of them? Like I want to
Yes.
make sure that like when I'm doing a reading for you, that it's not like completely off in left field. Like maybe I have the wrong birth time entered, or who knows what. But so it's like, I want to make sure that, and also you have the opportunity to clarify or ask questions. And like, I'm not a psychic. I'm reading an archetypal language.
Yes.
Like these
Mm-hmm.
are, it's never going to be like, oh, your chart shows me that on July 17th, you and your sister got into a fight over your mom's crystal vase that she left you.
Oh
Like
shit.
that's not what astrology is. It's more like the archetypes of like love, relationship, security, insecurity, emotion,
Mm-hmm.
like marriage, unions, spirituality. Like there's just, it's more of a broad topic, and then we as a team work together to make the meaning out of it and to figure it out how it best applies to your life going forward. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yes, to anyone that is listening, you guys need a book with Marcy. She's amazing. You do birth chart readings. I you need to continue that because I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, no, I do sit. Yes, I do birth chart readings, which are natal chart placements. But I also, in those readings, I do include some transits to look to see what's coming up for
Mhm.
you. I do synastry. The other type I offer is synastry readings, which is you and a partner, or you and another person. So I can do, like, I've done parent child synastry. Actually, I would prefer to, like, if I had my choice, I would mostly do just parent and children synastry readings, because it helps you understand how you and your child's energies work together, where there might be
Mhm.
hardships, where there's ease, and where you can work on things. And so that's what a synastry reading is. It's for two different people and we compare and contrast. And then I also offer astrocartography, which is locational astrology. So like if you were to, like, if you ever, if like, let's say you've moved more than 100 miles east or west of your birth location, your relocated chart will show, it will be, you may have a different ascendant, the angles will change, so your
Ooh.
signs, the houses will change, the planets will still be in the same degrees and the same signs, but the houses change, so it gives a different flavor. It's not going to replace your birth chart, but it's going to be like, how can I best utilize my energies in this new location? Where would be like, if I wanted to go on a vacation, where would be a great place in the world to go that I'd feel very relaxed? Or where would I go if I wanted to study abroad and focus on learning? Well, you could go here because Mercury is, this is the place where Mercury would be right on your ascendant, like that's what locational or
Mm-hmm.
astrocartography is. It's locational astrology. So if you plan on traveling or plan on moving, I would highly recommend that one.
Yes, go on. I like 100% recommend Marcy. I will put her all her information in the thing on Spotify.
Yay! It's just Mercurialmarcy.com. That's it.
Yes, follow
So,
her on Instagram, TikTok, put your notification so you can see when she goes live because her lives are like fire. I love it.
I'm like, I kind of want to go live tonight if I still have energy, but I don't know if I'll have energy
I
after.
don't know, girl, because you just, 90 minutes to this and then I know you have something after this and girl,
I'm an energizer bunny when it comes to this, but then I can't get out of bed most days because I'm like so exhausted after talking for 5 hours. So but
oh my
you are
goodness.
amazing and I love your energy. I just love that I could literally talk to you all day about everything. Like, I think we could talk about any subject under the sun. And
Isn't that crazy? Like,
yes.
I really, like, I'm trying to manifest with this Virgo new moon coming up. I'm trying to manifest more women like you,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. We the Virgo rising clans. I know. I'm like, I actually don't know that many, but I'll have to. I get it. I think it's the 12th house Leo energy of, like, for us, ego and like pompousness and like that catty drama, and it's kind of like not familiar to us. Like,
I don't like it. I don't
I
like
lack a
it.
lot of confidence because of my 12th house Leo, because the energy of Leo is literally hidden from me in my blind spot. So, like, it does affect my confidence, but it's also like, I don't, yes, I have an ego, but like, I feel like I could never be like competitive or try to, like, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I get it. I
That's
think that's what it
interesting.
is.
I feel like I'm like that too, but sometimes I have to watch myself because I'm telling you, Marcy, sometimes I could drag a bitch, okay? I try not to, but well, yeah, I actually haven't. But thank you again.
You're
Definitely
amazing.
will have you back on so we can talk about the other fucking charts that you do.
Yes, but anytime you want to just chit chat about astrology or anything, I would love to. So,
Yes, girl. I love you so much. Thank you
all right.
again, Marcy. Y'all go follow her. And that's a wrap for this astrology episode.
Have a good one. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye.